What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani of TSC News. I've right here on the line a true professional wrestling legend who I had the pleasure of meeting a couple months back in Sayreville, New Jersey. He rocked the house at the Starland Ballroom. He's getting ready to rock San Jose, the Bay Area, WrestleMania weekend. I'm talking about good old JR, Jim Ross. JR, how's it going, man?
Fred, if I was any better, I'd probably be twins, and I'm good, and I thank you for having me on.
Hey, my pleasure, sir. Now, we're going to talk about your big WrestleMania weekend coming up in a couple weeks, but let's talk a little bit about the road to WrestleMania. A couple months back, you said to me, Fred, in regards to Roman Reigns, I'd rather be late to the party than early to the party. Well, it looks like, at the moment, Vince McMahon is a little early to the Roman Reigns party. It's going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We can talk about the main event, but just in general, what's your overall feeling about this current WrestleMania card?
Well, I think that the momentum going into WrestleMania could probably use a shot in the arm. But as far as the card is concerned, I don't really have any issues with the card. I'm always leery because I used to book cards. I booked all the live events there for years, and I'm sure people could look at some of my events and say, "Well, that card doesn't sound very good," or whatever. And my point has always been, let's see how it plays out before we cast judgment on it. I think we can certainly objectively cast judgment on: has the build been as exciting, as unpredictable as many would like? Probably not. But does that mean that the show itself won't be productive and exciting and have some unpredictable elements? Absolutely not. I just like to give the talent the benefit of the doubt, because they have the opportunity to make it really special, depending on how their performances are. Lesnar and Reigns, that's really an interesting situation, because athletically speaking, you got two outstanding athletes. I think they'll have a good match. And if Lesnar stays, he could very easily, by hook or crook, meaning Paul Heyman's the hook or crook, win the match. If Lesnar goes, you don't have any option but to beat him, in my view. I'm not as down on that match as many, because and objectively, I will admit, full disclosure, I recruited Lesnar. My group signed Lesnar, so he's always going to be special in my eyes. And then when I was going down to Orlando to the developmental center, and before that in Tampa at Florida Championship Wrestling, I got to know Roman Reigns very well, because I knew his dad back in the day, and of course I know The Rock. I signed The Rock as well. So I really think he's got an unlimited upside. But you get good at different times, and sometimes it takes his match with Daniel Bryan at Fastlane I thought was excellent. So we'll have to wait and see. But I reserve judgment on judging something like that until I see it. It's like saying, well, how good are your Sooners going to be this year? Well, we hope that we're better than we were last year, but we won't know for conclusively until they start playing games. So I remain optimistic about it, and I hope that the show is good. Fred, let me tell you something. The WrestleMania is a lot like the Super Bowl, in as much as within the genre, it's the ultimate. But if you don't have a dog in the hunt, if your team's not in the Super Bowl, you might not be as emotionally invested in the game as you would if they were. However, if you're a football fan, you're still going to watch the Super Bowl because it's the Super Bowl. I think if you're a wrestling fan and the card's perhaps not exactly to your liking, you're still going to watch WrestleMania because you're a wrestling fan.
Great analogy. I totally agree there. You did say a few months back in an interview with the Wrestling Observer that you were a little worried about Reigns versus Lesnar, or Lesnar versus anybody in the main event, because it might have a Goldberg versus Lesnar reaction because most fans in the back of their mind know Lesnar's leaving or maybe leaving. Do you still have those worries?
I don't have them as prominently as some. I think Reigns has gained a lot in the popularity of the fans in the last several weeks. Is he where he has to be the guy? No, but it's a work in progress. And I've always said that he's a work in progress. But he's got all the intangibles, I think, to become a long-time major star there. But, boy, the audience at WrestleMania, and certainly we've all watched and enjoyed and kind of chuckled at some of the antics and the audience reaction of the day after WrestleMania at those Raws with so many international fans on hand. The audience becomes very unpredictable. So with that said, I still believe they're unpredictable. I believe that Reigns has still got a hill or two to climb to get over the hump of being it's too much too soon. I like Lesnar better than Reigns type dialogue. But the issue is, and it's not Reigns' fault, Brock Lesnar is so impressive, so unique, that he's probably a creative tweak or two away from being the most popular wrestler in WWE. People live vicariously through that big bull, and the fact that he was a dominant WWE guy. When we signed him out of Minnesota, University of Minnesota, he was, he became a natural. He wasn't a lifelong wrestling fan whatsoever, but he was such a gifted athlete at 6'3", 285, and amazing quickness. And quite frankly, a lot of people don't even realize this. If you were running 40s, there's probably very few guys in that roster could outrun him on a 40.
Oh yeah,
he is an amazing beast with that twitch reaction, that great first step. So I think Lesnar is going to be close to being a babyface no matter who he wrestles. And secondly, you kind of got to go with the crowd, and I don't know how you predict that crowd because they have so many different diverse backgrounds, but I do think that I think the guys will have a good match, and hopefully the lines are blurred anyway in WWE by and large between the fan favorites and the villains. So the line in their company probably is more transparent between good and evil than any wrestling company in the world.
Do you think that's a problem these days in wrestling? It's nice to have maybe like one kind of, I guess, like Walter White character where just some good, some bad, somebody that's a little more dynamic. But when 1 week you think a guy's a face, next week a guy's a heel. Is it a problem? Do you think in today's wrestling?
Well, it's really a philosophical situation. I think that just for me, I still like the good versus evil. And I think that we see that in so many major mainstream sports, which is why the home team normally would be considered the babyfaces, and the visitors are normally considered the heels. And I think people enjoy that. I think people enjoy being extremely exuberant and positive about who they like, and I think they have as much fun investing that emotion in who they don't like. And I remember back in the day when the Four Horsemen were at their prime and in their prime and at their peak, fans, from my experience of broadcasting, a litany of their matches, fans enjoyed booing the Horsemen. It was fun. And then it morphed into, they got so comfortable with it, they started cheering them. And I know that the Horsemen getting cheers was not something that they embraced. Because when you're a true wrestling villain, you want to be booed. That's your job. But in today's world, especially in WWE, that line is very thin. I would like to see the line a little bit more pronounced But as long as the open boater saying goes, there's an ass every 18 inches, meaning there's somebody in every seat. Does it really matter? I don't know that it does. But it just from the simple sake of performance and the guys strategically putting their matches together to have a definitive fan favorite and a definitive villain sometimes makes that process a little bit easier. Makes it easier to game plan.
How are you spending your Austin 316 day?
My Austin 316.
March 16th?
I saw that question on Twitter. I got a kick out of it. Well, I tell you, I had turned over a new leaf. Normally, I would go out in Steve's honor today and have a beer just for the simple sake of celebrating Austin 316 Day. But I have embarked on this new diet, new training regimen, and I haven't had a drink since the socially, nothing, since Royal Rumble, the day after the weekend I saw you back in January. And I have gone on this crazy, it's not crazy, it's just smart really, but I'm not, knowing how I eat, knowing how I was raised, no fried food, no bread, no milk, no sugar. So I'm trying to get healthier, and when you get a little older, I feel great. I've got a trainer. I'm going to the gym 5 days a week, working out with my trainer 3 days a week, doing cardio 2 days a week extra. I have never felt better in years. But so where I would normally go celebrate the 316 Day with Steve, I've already sent him my happy 316 Day text. So I may talk to him later today. Depends on how busy he is with his podcast and how busy I am with my podcast. We both stay pretty busy with our projects, and but so I normally will have a cold beer. Today I just had a best wishes and a good old hello. We talk all the time, so it's not like we're not in touch.
The UFC, actually, believe it or not, got their first non-American lightweight champion in the promotion's history, Rafael Dos Anjos. Just absolutely destroyed Anthony Pettis. To Pettis' credit, unlike Carlos Esparza, I thought he had a better performance in the sense that he never gave up. He kept trying to fight back, kept trying to finish off his back, but RDA just had his number.
I was surprised. I thought Pettis would prevail, and part of that is because, I have seen Pettis do some extraordinary things, and he's obviously an outstanding fighter, and will continue to be an outstanding fighter. He did have a bad night, but I was not as informed or as aware of his challenger as most, I'm sure a lot of MMA fans were. So how well that guy fought in every phase of the game, offensively, defensively, octagon control, everything. I never saw any flaws. I didn't see the guy make hardly any mistakes. And it seemed like, the pre-match stuff, I understand a lot of it's hype, like pro wrestling, but I thought that Pettis was a little, seemed to be a little overconfident. Man, maybe that's part of his persona. I don't know. But the other guy certainly used it for fuel because he was perfect.
Oh, yeah. And the amazing thing about RDA, I don't know if you know a lot about him, he was kind of like a mid-level fighter for a while. Just, not a bad fighter, not a great fighter. He was kind of just a guy. And over the course of the last couple of years, he looked great. Most recently, he knocked out Ben Henderson. Nobody knocks out Ben Henderson. He destroyed Nate Diaz. Nobody really does that to Nate Diaz. And now this, just completely dominating Anthony Pettis. Is there a pro wrestling equivalent off the top of your head of a guy like Rafael Dos Anjos, a dude that maybe was solid, not necessarily great, and over the course of a couple years, totally turns his career around?
Well, you can go all the way back to, there's a lot of guys that it's more prominent, Fred, in the territory days than it is that I can think of off the top of my head in the modern days. And then maybe somebody's going to pop in my mind, but, you know, you'd see guys in the territory days come through as a prelim guy. An example is like Hulk Hogan worked all these little territories in Pensacola and Memphis and places like that. And about the only thing he had going for him was an amazing look and a bright orange tan. But he learned from those territories and learned how to be Hulk Hogan. He knew that he was only going to. There were certain things that he was going to be able to do really well, and there certain things that he was going to stay away from. And he was smart enough to refine those two philosophies. But if you look at him, you know, arguably one of the greatest ever in the business as an attraction, he came miles. He came from being a guy that had to be led by a real good heel or a real good babyface, depending on Hogan's role, to becoming the biggest star in that one era of anybody in the business, just learning. So, but some guys just develop late. I mean, you know, they develop late. I remember Ken Shamrock was that way. Ken Shamrock came in, had some good fundamental skills. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have Kenny, I think it's next week, on my podcast, and we talk a lot about this, but Ken got some amateur wrestling training from a guy named Nelson Royal, who was a tough old son of a gun, and then Kenny got into the fighting, and then he came back and we hired him. I hired him under my watch, and he was just really turning the corner. You know, he was well known to be the referee for the Austin Bret Hart match at WrestleMania 13, but he was starting to really turn the corner, and I think would have been one of WWE's biggest stars, but he had the itch to get back in the fighting game. So he made this acceleration because of his natural athleticism and his aptitude, and got really, really good. And a lot of people don't remember, or not old enough to remember, how dominant he could have been, and he was at times in the ring for WWE. But just as he was about to touch the promised land and move there permanently, he came to me and said, "I want to go back to fighting, and it's just in my blood, and I can't get it out of my system, and I got some pretty good opportunities." So, you know, we helped facilitate his departure reluctantly, but he's another guy that just came in with a name. The world's most dangerous man was perfect for pro wrestling, but his technique and his style became much more refined as time went on. So, but that's how that deal went. Heck, you can look at Steve Austin. Austin was an underutilized guy that was basically a tag team guy more often than not in WCW. Got hurt, goes to ECW, and so he can cut promos that they didn't even realize he could do because he'd never had the opportunity to do that. He wasn't cast that way in WCW. And I hired him because I thought he had something. And I didn't know how it was going to manifest itself, but luckily enough, it's like one of those recruits where you take this guy's not a quote-unquote five-star guy, but it's like Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford was a two-star guy, ended up being the first pick of the draft. So you never know how the learning curve, where people are going to, the light bulb is going to go on, and they get it.
And you're talking about Steve Austin, how, you know, some people didn't give him a chance at first and everything. One of the big talking points of the show I went to, that you hosted and did a great job with, is it doesn't matter necessarily what a guy looks like, how big, how tall, how small they are. You know, at the end of the day, you know, the criteria for somebody getting over is getting over. At the end of the day, if they have the talent, you should at least give them a chance. And you brought up Mick Foley, you know, who's probably the best example of that. And I'm looking at NXT right now in 2015, and look, we could say what we want about the main roster and if Daniel Bryan should be the main event, whatever. But you look at NXT, you have Kevin Owens on top. he doesn't exactly have the best body. He's in shape, not exactly the best body. He's on top. He's a current NXT champion. You got Sami Zayn, not exactly a musclehead by any stretch of the imagination. You got Finn Balor, Adrian Neville, great physiques, not exactly, big, tall, 6'4" guys. With NXT, it seems like they're taking a much more open-minded approach. And I don't know if you heard, it looks like they're trying to run some house shows now, not just within the Florida area and during special events like, say, Mania or the Arnold, but making it an actual touring brand similar to ECW was nearly a decade ago for WWE, albeit hopefully more successful. Do you think this is a good approach for NXT? And do you think that this open-mindedness that we're seeing with Paul Levesque and his approach is one that's going to translate to the main roster down the road when he comes in power?
Well, I tell you, Fred, Paul Levesque is a true student of the game. He's been a lifelong fan. He's studied it. He's a historian in a lot of ways, and was always a very bright guy. I remember when I was in charge of talent relations, and I would have any number of issues, big or small, with the clique. Paul was always he was always the ambassador. He was the level-headed one. He was the guy that didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs, just ate, slept, breathed wrestling. So he's a very, very versed and very well aware of the history of the business. If you take everybody in the history of wrestling under 6 feet tall and eliminate them from the process, eliminate them from the history books, you would eliminate some of the greatest stars that the business has ever known. And so I think that there are guys like Paul Levesque that understand that. I mean, Dick the Bruiser was 5'9". Buddy Rogers was 5'10". Bruno Sammartino was 5'10", maybe 5'11", something like that. And there are dozens of guys that you can leave out of that equation. But point being is that you do not have to be 6 feet tall or over 6 feet to be a star. It's the it factor. It's the charisma. Chris Jericho's not 6 feet tall. Dolph Ziggler, I don't think, is 6 feet tall. Daniel Bryan certainly isn't 6 feet tall. So I think WWE, to answer your question, yes, I think they're relaxing their unwritten rule of certain size. When I was hiring a talent, I knew that Vince liked bigger guys, but so did Bill Watts, and so did Eddie Graham, and so did Ole Anderson, and all these other bookers. But they also could recognize talent and stars. They come in different packages, different sizes, different ethnicities, the whole 9 yards. So I think that they relaxed that somewhat there. I think that there's as you laid it out, I mean, there's a lot of guys in NXT that are going to be players that are not 6'4", and I have no issues with that. I just think that if you have the it factor, the charisma, that intangible that cannot be taught, and you are able to relate to your audience base, then you're on your way to becoming successful. The good thing about, I think, when they come out of NXT, especially guys like Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens, is that they have a good foundation from the Indies, and then they get refined in Orlando, and then you leave Orlando and you go out on the road to a non-Florida audience that's watching the NXT show on the WWE Network, and they're finding a marketplace for it. They're new, they're fresh, they haven't been exposed. I think it's a brilliant move, and I think the other thing that's been really smart about that is that, and I've always said this, and that's why I used to book guys when I started the developmental system in the '90s. One thing I would do is I would send guys to go down and spend a week or whatever, 10 days, 2 weeks, that were not booked, but they were experienced, because it's very simple. A rookie cannot get better working with another rookie. They can do little things. Is it bad? No, it's not bad, but it's not nearly as viable as a rookie working with someone with experience. That's how you get better. And the other way you get better is you add that new audience, paying customer, new audience element to it. So what WWE is doing is they're running these NXT tours, which I think is great, and they're booking some veterans who aren't booked and are available on these tours to help with name identity and some box office pop, but they're in the ring with some of these younger guys, which is going to help the younger guys immensely. So I think it's a very smart thing, and how often they do it or how they manage it or things like that, because you're probably not going to see them touring every week, Fred, because they got to still train. They still got to go to practice. They still got to go to the workouts. And if you're on the road every week, it's really going to limit the opportunity for them to get back in the ring and work on. The ideal thing would be go on a tour, 3 or 4 day tour, and then come back on your deficiencies were on that tour. So it's a good thing. And the NXT brand itself is the future of WWE. There's no division in the company that is more important than the talent division, how they're managed, how they're trained, and so forth. So I'm a big fan of NXT, and I really hope that it has to be, the next generation of WrestleMania main eventers are going to come to NXT at some point in time.
Now, with all due respect to Paul Levesque, I think he's doing a great job as far as managing the talent and everything in NXT, mentoring them. But he's the head of talent relations, and if I'm not mistaken, that also applies to the main roster. And granted, he doesn't have the final say. He just got voted on the board of directors. But he's not the main guy yet. It's still Vince McMahon. There's Kevin Dunn. There's other people around Vince McMahon. And I look at the main roster, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like they're almost having the same problem TNA had a few years back, albeit on a smaller scale, where slowly but surely, outside of your Cenas, your Reigns, maybe your Bryans and Ambroses, everybody just seems to become another guy due to the 50-50 booking, wins and losses, and titles not meaning as much. I mean, if you're in Triple H's position, is there really anything he can do on his end? I mean, I know he's doing a great job with developmental, but I mean, at the end of the day, the main roster is what brings in the real money and what keeps funding the Performance Center and everything else he's trying to do at NXT. I mean, what can be done? And do you think he's doing everything he can right now to rectify whatever's going on with the main roster?
Yeah, well, you got to remember that as good a job as Paul is doing in NXT, he doesn't call the final shots, and there's only one man that calls the final shots in WWE, no matter what division it's in, and that's Vince McMahon. And booking is a philosophical thing. There's a lot of different ways. I worked for several bookers and several guys in that role in my 40-year career. Some better than others, obviously. Just like some coaches or the NBA are better than others. We're in the height now of March Madness, and we see that there are certain coaches that are trained or mentally attuned to this time of the year. They're the ones that get their teams to peak late if they can, and they're the ones that make good coaching decisions as far as managing clock management and things of that nature. I'm not a fan of 50-50 booking because I don't think that, this is not a Paul Levesque knock or a Vince McMahon knock. It's just a opinion is that I think every match should have a reason, and every match should be booked to advance someone in it, more than one if you're smart enough and they're skilled enough to do it. I don't think you necessarily have to win a match to quote-unquote impress the fans and get over. I think it's all in the performance and how the match is strategized. But I'm not a fan of 50-50 booking. I like for the fans to either be angry with the outcome or happy with the outcome, but never benign. I'm not a fan of neutral. I'm not. In other words, don't be Geneva. Don't be Switzerland. Don't be neutral. let me be angry that my favorite lost or be happy that he won. And because those are definitive emotions that you can build upon vis-a-vis the I beat you and then you beat me up after the match. So what did we accomplish? Yeah. I don't know what we accomplished there totally. So, but that's a philosophy, and a lot of that is because that there are fewer main event level talents that you don't want. You want to make sure that you are not your maintenance is good with those guys. You know, my point is you got to give somebody the ball, you got to get somebody that carries, and you got to see where they're going to go. I think that's a lot like the Roman Reigns situation right now. Is you know, you just don't know where he's going until you put him in the game, and he's going to be in the game on March 29th, the day after my show in San Jose, and we're going to see how he, you know, how he plays. He's in the starting lineup, and the pressure on guys to close the show at an event like WrestleMania is absolutely off the hook. And people don't understand that sometimes. They just say, because guys look natural, they look normal. But, man, I've seen guys, you know, the old pre-match regurgitation, just the nerves are just overwhelming. The butterflies are like eagles. So to close the show takes a special breed of cat. Some guys have handled it really well. Some guys have not. Some guys have flourished in it. When Austin got to that level, he relished in it. He was more comfortable there than he was at any other time. I remember booking him on the road and to give him a little bit of a breather because he was pulling the wagon, put him in tag matches. I remember my phone ringing one day, and it was him, and I was at my home in Connecticut, and he was mad as hell because he got to the arena and he found out he was in a tag match, and so he was not pleased with that. He said, I haven't worked all these years to become the main event guy. I want to close the show. So that meant he didn't want to be in a tag match, nor did he want to go on anywhere else but last. Because, you know, sometimes the main event guys, you know, like in the Hogan era and stuff, they put them on the middle of the card. They get their match done. They get them out of the arena, and they go on about their way, make it a little easier on them. That was never Austin. Austin wanted the responsibility of being going on last, and he didn't want to have a partner. Now, he would do it on TV. It was going to further a storyline, but just on the road, he thought people wanted to come see him and him alone in his matches, and he was probably absolutely right. My booking him that way, and he understood it too, was to give him a little bit of a physical break, but he didn't want it. So, but that's the gamer in him. That's the linebacker mentality that he had. He wanted to play, and he wanted to hit somebody.
Well, JR, you're one that always comes to play. As I mentioned earlier in the show, an evening with Jim Ross was freaking awesome in Sayreville, New Jersey. The best way I could describe it is humorous, a little inspirational, very informative, and very personable. You were great with the fans. I got a chance to talk to you for a few minutes as well. You had a nice surprise guest in Sean X-Pac Waltman. And I guess the floor is yours now to tell us all about your big weekend in San Jose, the day of the Hall of Fame.
Well, you know, no matter the venue, you always try to go out and do your best. You know, Sayreville, the people at Starland Ballroom are wonderful. They're good folks, great hosts. I didn't realize until I due diligence that was Bon Jovi's hometown.
Oh yeah,
and that Bon Jovi had played that stage along with a ton of luminaries. I felt like a pair of brown shoes at a formal wedding being on that stage. And the weather was not too great, as you remember. I know going back to Philly, because I had another show in Philly on Sunday on the Royal Rumble afternoon, the damn road was closed one lane. So I would have had to really want to see somebody to get out in that weather myself. So the crowd was great. I thought we had a fun show. The audience was very, very bright and very into the show because, as you know, I'll come out and do, 20, 30 minutes of monologue, for the lack of a better term, even though I don't have a prompter. I kind of line in my head. But the big part of our show is the Q&As because every audience is different. Their mindsets are different. Their region of the country is different. They have different lines of questioning. And I don't restrict any questions, as you know. I don't, no holds barred. Ask what you want. I'll give you an honest answer. If I don't know, I'm not going to make one up just to BS you. So I think that's kind of the story there. But when you get to WrestleMania and that environment, any of us that are either fans and know that WrestleMania is the back daddy, or any of us that have been blessed enough to be booked and have been a part of WrestleManias, like I was from so many years as a broadcaster there at WWE, there's still a little pep in your step. There's a little, it's like OU playing, and I don't, gosh, this will probably jinx my team, but there's a difference in Oklahoma playing Iowa State and Oklahoma traveling down to the Cotton Bowl and playing Texas. It's just the way it is. And I'm not knocking Iowa State. I don't want to even hate mail from Cyclone fans, because one of my favorite people in the world is on their coaching staff, Mark Mangino, the former coach at Kansas. But that's just, it's WrestleMania, man. And I know that and the great thing is that the Q&As come from, when I did the Sayreville show that you and I visited, I'm thinking most of the fans came from, Jersey, by and large. But when you go to do a show at WrestleMania, the fans come from everywhere. And so that then gives your question and answer aspect an amazing diversity. And that makes every show different. So the Q&As will be entertaining. I got a lot of guests are coming. I don't know how many comps I've given for my friends in the business, in the world of entertainment, in the world of MMA, in the world of TV. It's going to be a real who's who at that show, and we've still got tickets available. We sold out all the VIP tickets, which gets you a meet and greet before the show. So what we have left now are $20 general admission tickets. I set the prices. I thought a $20 ticket was a good value. There's a lot of activities at WrestleMania. People spend a lot of money to get there, and I wanted to be fair, and I wanted to be fan-friendly. And so I thought a $20 ticket was fan-friendly, and so that's what we have left. But they're good seats. I mean, it's not like you're in the 300 section, of a football stadium or something, or the Garden. They're good. They're good seats. The building is a former casino, so they turned it into a music hall, Fred, and so we can continue to add seats, and it's a nice room, and the free parking and all that good stuff.
It's the Rock Bar Theater, correct?
Yeah, Rock Bar Theater, right there in San Jose. Tickets at ticketweb.com. That's one word, ticketweb.com. And tickets will be available at the door the day of the event. So I'm excited about it because, again, once you get into the city that's hosting WrestleMania, we all get a little bit more motivated. And I don't know why, and that's just as on my side. Some of my best experiences in my career were being able to broadcast WrestleManias. I mean, gosh almighty, I worked 19 years. I used to get a laugh with these kids in training. Well, how long do you think it's going to take me to get to WWE, get called up? And I would say, well, hopefully you'll do it faster than I did. because it took me 19 years to get here, and then I had 21 more years in WWE. So that's kind of where we are there. It's just extra. They're just more mojo, man. It's just a little different deal. So we'll hopefully tell some entertaining stories that'll be WrestleMania oriented, and I've been working on my material for that, and then we'll go right into the Q&A, which is the most fun part of the whole process.
Who you got coming up on your podcast? I just listened to your Terry Funk podcast, and I can't do as good of an impression as you, Jim Ross, but I was very entertained by it.
Terry was on Terry was on week before last. Melina Perez, former Divas champion, was a phenomenal guest, and she was on last week, and she's on tonight on podcast1.com or iTunes, or my website has where you just click on and listen to the current episode. The Jim Cornette show will drop tomorrow night. A new show drops every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. So Cornette's on there. Shamrock's coming up, as I mentioned. I have Dave Meltzer come on, and he and I will review the WrestleMania event. I've got people from Lucha Underground coming on. I've got all kinds of, Shawn Michaels. I've got an interview with him in the can. It's coming up soon. On the home page of my website, without me overshilling, I have and that's mobile device friendly. If somebody's just got on the phone, it's jrsdarbq.com. On the home page is the schedule of all my guests that are booked through April. So, but I'm having a blast doing this podcast. As a matter of fact, I just finalized before you and I jumped on the phone today. I'm going to be interviewing Samoa Joe later on today, on Monday, as we record this, for a future podcast, and that'll be the first time that I've had a chance to talk to him. And but I'm really having I'm really having fun doing it, Fred. It's a you know how it is. You connect with people that you don't normally talk to. I get to reconnect with people I haven't talked to in a long time. And like the Melina interview, there were so many rumors and innuendo and BS about her, and I just let her tell her story. It's just a very I'm not looking for salaciousness or dirt, but I do want the show to be interesting, and we talk about a lot of different things. And so, but the podcast is done great. It's on iTunes, as I mentioned, podcast1.com, and then every Tuesday on my website, as I said on the home page, where you can find all the guests. You can also click one little button, and you can listen to the current show that we have out at that time. So we got some great guests coming up. I got a bunch of contacts, and we'll be releasing probably another month's worth of guests in the next week or so. So it's always going to be fun, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
When you're in the Bay Area, are you planning on going to any shows as well? ROH, maybe?
I'm probably going to go. I'm going to try to go to the Rey Mysterio Wale show on Thursday night, and say hi to Ray. And Wale's the rapper. He's a big fan, and I'm probably going to try to hit that. My wife and I want to go watch Mick Foley's show. We've seen it numerous times. Mick was probably one of my most overachieving. I went out on the end of the limb to get him hired, and so I've always got a special place for Mick, and he does so many wonderful things and charities and things like that. He's a wonderful heart. So his show is on Friday night in San Jose. So I'm hoping make that if I can, and then between doing some last-minute media and then the last minute just to make sure I'm ready to roll, I probably will. That'll probably be about it. I'm not. We're gonna fly home on. Have no plans at this time to go to the Hall of Fame. I don't know if they're going to invite the former Hall of Famers that are in the market to come to the ceremony or not. Don't know. Don't have any plans to go at this time. And then on Sunday morning, my wife and I are flying back from San Jose to Oklahoma, and I'll end up watching WrestleMania on my either on my iPad or my PC on the network. So that's kind of the weekend. We get there on Thursday, we leave on Sunday, so it's a fast trip. But man, I've been gone so much. I was at LA for meetings, looking at some job opportunities to do some more play-by-play in MMA and boxing, and maybe some kickboxing. And then we went to the Rousey fight. Then I went back to LA last week. I'm in a movie called What Now? The trailer's online. I encourage people to check it out. It's a TV-14 comedy about four guys they're all wrestling fans, and their lives, they see themselves getting older, like 30, and they get involved in online dating. And one of the central characters in it, I play his nasty-ass boss, and it's a comedic role, obviously. And that movie, What Now, will be on VOD on all the major cable companies on April 3rd. So, but if somebody's listening, just do a Google search of What Now, the film, the movie, whatever, and the trailer's out there for everybody to see. And be sure you watch the trailer until the end, and you might see somebody you know in an entirely different atmosphere. And unfortunately for my two young granddaughters, Grandpa drops an F-bomb or two, and so, which means they will never see the movie until they're probably 30.
Awesome, man. Well, JR, I really do appreciate the time. For more information on Jim Ross and everything going on with him, you can follow him on Twitter at JRsBBQ. You can also visit his website, jrsbarbq.com. And listen, JR, if you need help getting the WWE Network on your TV, I could walk you through it, man. You don't have to necessarily watch it on the iPad or PC. I think you'd like it a little bit more on your 40, 50-inch TV.
Yeah, I got to get with that, Fred. You're right. You're absolutely right. I got to find the right device to. I know a buddy of mine gave me Google Chrome or something that plugs in.
Chromecast.
But that doesn't work. You got to get either Apple TV or something else, I guess. I got to figure that out. I got to get that working. And you're right. I'd rather watch on our television. And by the way, I know a lot of your listeners are East Coast guys. Not that they're not everywhere. We're looking at doing a show in May in Baltimore, just trying to finalize a venue on the weekend that WWE's there for their big pay-per-view in Baltimore coming up in May. We're working on a show in July in St. Louis, if that comes to be. And certainly are looking at venues in Brooklyn to have a ringside show with during somewhere around SummerSlam. So we're getting back on the East Coast, at least hopefully in May and in August, among other places. So, but if they follow me on Twitter at JRSBBQ as you suggested, then I'll keep everybody updated on that stuff. And appreciate the support, and always enjoy talking to you.
My pleasure, sir. Likewise. Definitely looking forward to see you come back in the New York area very soon. But folks, again, you can check him out in San Jose, WrestleMania weekend at JR's Barbecue, jrsbarbecue.com.